Alright, in this session we want to see how to modify original tracks or existing tracks to be able to make some changes we want to make. This has the potential to be a very complicated process, and a lot of that is determined upon what the music is and how well the music flows from one thing to the next. So I've picked a track that we've done some work with, and that track is the Amazing Grace Bethel. And this is the original version of this track. So to be able to see the original track, this is what it looks like. These are all the parts of this track. We've gone through and formatted this track. So we've made some changes to this. So one of these is a response track, and I want you to see kind of what the difference looks like in the response track when it comes up. Is that you can see the response track, what we've been able to do is pretty much just start right at the chorus and go towards the end. We missed a lot of the other side of it. So in order to do something like this, and we'd also have another version of this in which we've kind of just shortened it all together, and that's where we took out a couple of the bridges, I believe, towards the end, or one of the refrains they might call it. You can see here where the track kind of breaks up a little bit. That's kind of what we did. So in order to do this, there's a couple of ways that it can be done, but probably the most efficient way that it's going to be done is to make sure that it's going to actually work from one to the next. So you can see coming out of the instrumental, and I'll zoom in a little bit here,
Refrain.
and you'll see it flows quite naturally. It also has to kind of sort of be done at a transition point in the song. So as it goes into a refrain, as they're going to naturally make a chord change altogether. There's also some elements of this musically that I don't fully get, but if it's not following a certain musical theory structure, then it sounds really weird and it plays really weird. And as long as everything stays in the same tempo, which in this song it is, it's all in 4/4. That works. Some songs they switch out from 2/4 to 4/4, or a lot of times some of the 6/4 songs will throw in an extra beat or measure there. That's where it can start to get really complicated. So to come back into the original version over here and kind of see what this looks like, you can see we are after the instrumental, kind of at the refrain. To give you an idea of what this looks like, let's go to the original version here, which is this guy. Open him back up, and you can see, let me zoom it back out, it goes bridge, chorus, instrumental, and it had an instrumental and an intro here. So to give you an idea of what this looks like and how it works, is we want to go basically and take out the this whole section. So let me zoom it in a little bit so we can get it right on the measure count. This is where it's really important to make sure everything's lined up. And we can come through here, and in live you have the ability, when you paste and cut, you can just cut that one particular thing. So if we just cut this, it's just going to cut that one part out of the track. However, we don't want to cut this, we want to cut time. And by cutting time, it means it cuts everything in the track. So let's see how that sounds.
Guitar in.
But you can see there, it didn't work so good. So this is where it means that we have to come in and either find a different spot in the song with which to bring it out, or we come up here and we're just going to work on this in the original track. It cut everything all the way down. We can kind of slide this back and tell it exactly sort of where we want the cut to be. So
Guitar in.
and that's actually much better. We probably want to come back and do it a little bit further up front.
Guitar in.
And you'll notice that at that point our guide tracks are also off. So it's saying guitar in, and we don't need guitar in to be right there. What we need to be right there is refrain. So we come back over here to click in guides, go to English guides, and we would pick the one that says refrain, and we'd drag it over, and we'd want it to be, and it's actually a little bit before that. It's right there.
Refrain.
2, 3, 4, 1. And we can do the same thing down here, and Ableton actually gives you an opportunity to adjust the type of transition that it makes if you get in deep enough. And this is an area that I'm not overly proficient in, but it lets me be able to, I think it's in the fades, like if I want this fade to come back here a little bit more, then it sounds a little bit better and a little bit better transitioned instead of being an abrupt one thing to the next. And this is a
Refrain.
as opposed to it being just an abrupt. Do it.
Refrain.
And we could also probably bring this back to here and do the same thing and transition it over.
Refrain.
So those are the little nuances that come about to replace that. Now when you do this, in order to make it easier in the formatting process, you want to come and select, and you have to tell it to join these tracks together. So instead of this being 2 tracks, it's 1 track. Because right now if I just select this and I move it, it's just going to move that one part of the track instead of selecting the whole track. So once you select a track, you would go Command J, which is going to join the track. It's going to make all these changes kind of permanent so that you don't have the ability to come back in and edit those. So it's really important that you make sure you have all those things done ahead of time. It'll also reset your warping. So when I combine a track, it's no longer going to be warped at 2 semi-steps down. It's going to be that 0 semitone. That's its new thing. So as you can see, this would then have to also be done to each one of these tracks that we would plan to use. So if we want to use a percussion track, for instance, we need to come down here where there's really not much of a drum track on that one at that point in the song. Really the only thing kind of playing are some of these electrics here. So we'd want to make sure, let's see, I don't think that whole deal is on. Let's make sure it's on here. And oh, so we want to make sure when it comes in on each one of the tracks that we're going to actually use something. Like you see that kind of overly abruptly sort of kicked in there. So we need to come back here, tell it we want to do some fade elements, and we'd want to fade that in so that it would and not be something that's just popping in out of nowhere. So that's kind of the process. It can take a great deal of time to do it. It can be done quickly, but it can also be messed up very quickly. So that is the process of how to modify a song that exists. And at the same time, I also try to save that over here in formatted tracks. As you see some of these others, I just save it as different versions so we keep the original in case we ever have to go back to it and make some changes, or we messed up somewhere. We keep all of those things so that they're ready to go.